everyone, and welcome back to my show. I'm glad that you guys are tuning in because today we have a very important case. I've been on this case for a very long time. Unfortunately, this is an unknown case for most Americans. They've never heard of Don Wiley. They've never heard of scientists who died right after 9/11 and Anthrax attacks. And these cases were hushed in media for whatever reason. And I want to bring attention to Don Wiley, specifically Don Wiley's case, because I think it's very important that you guys know what our government is capable of. We know that our government steals, cheats, but very rarely Americans actually are aware that our government actually kills people. And sometimes it's our own. So today I'm going to talk about a scientist who died right after 9/11 attacks, suspiciously in the circumstances that not even the lead detective on the case can explain. So the lead detective on the case will be joining me in a second, but it's very important to remember Don Wiley's name because of who he was and what he was involved in and what he was doing right before he died.
Just weeks after the anthrax attacks shook the United States, Don Wiley, a leading Level 4 scientist in infectious diseases, has died under mysterious circumstances. Renowned for his groundbreaking work on deadly viruses, his death has left the scientific community and a nation already on edge, searching for answers.
This is a case of an honest American that was exceptional in what he did at his job. And he did everything for his country, and his country kind of betrayed him in many ways. And today we're going to discuss that case, and we're going to also discuss Anthrax attacks during 9/11 that was portrayed as an attack on America and American people, but very soon we discovered that it might have been a false flag. So are these two cases related? Maybe. We're going to try and unfold the case and see where we go and what we will find. Today, my guest is amazing detective who was on the case. I will speak about the case in a second. I'll tell you what this is about, but he was the lead detective on the case. But as I understand, you kind of have more questions at the end of it, Robert, than you have answers, correct?
Absolutely.
And we will dive into it. So please tell people who you are, what you do, and then we'll open the case and we'll talk about what we are here for.
Okay. I'm retired Colonel Robert Shimwell. In 2001, when Dr. Don Wiley went missing, I was a sergeant in homicide at that time, and eventually I was given the case after several really good detectives started the case of missing person because we didn't know who he was at the time, and once they found out who he was, it was shipped over to homicide. And it's only because we have more resources than what the Missing Person Bureau did. They did a great job. They had a couple of guys in there that was in homicide at one time or another.
Right.
It started it, and they handed me over the case, and so I tried to go from there.
Perfect. And guys, so this is a case of a level 4 scientist, microbiologist, Don Wiley. And I know this name might not ring a bell for you right now, but it's my goal today to educate you about this man and what he did and how unfairly he was treated and how unfairly his family was treated. And then I'm going to try and explain to you why do I think that there could be some type of connection, and we don't know yet, but there could be a connection between the Anthrax attacks and Don Wiley's death, and not only Don Wiley's death, but also Dr. Kelly and many others that we will also discuss. Don Wiley was not the single and the only case that ended up being a victim in 2001, right after the attacks. So let's talk about the man first, right? What kind of man he was and what he did and how he ended up where he ended up.
He was, by all means, a very intelligent individual. Married, he and his wife had a lovely marriage. He had 2 previous children from his previous marriage, and he had 2 that he and his wife had just adopted. And loving family, hard worker, by all means. He was a Harvard professor. He went in studying at Harvard, and they immediately hired him. He began teaching biology in Harvard University.
Right.
While he continued his studies.
And what was discovered was very important. People were saying that he was going to get like a Nobel Prize award or something like that, right? Like they were talking about that 50% of people that had the background that Wiley had usually got nominated for the Nobel Prize.
Yes,
correct?
he had 2 years earlier. He had just won the Japan Award, which is a very prestigious award, and his name was being in talks with the Nobel Peace Prize because of what he did.
Right.
And his main study at the time, I think he was looking into Ebola. He had opportunity for Ebola, anthrax, and all that. He had that clearance. However, he was breaking down the influenza virus,
case, right?
and that's what he was working on, and how to I guess cure the strand that was out at the time, and then he'd revisit it when something changed in it for the.
This is very complicated for someone who's not a scientist, because I've spoken to so many scientists. When I first called you and got on this case, I spoke to his friends, and first of all, like, my respect went away. Okay, with all these scientists, I was like, dude, you are like, what? Like, you're in charge of bioweapons? Like, and you, like, it's crazy how immature some of them were. And but I guess, like, sometimes geniuses are weird that way. Like, their social cues are not there for them. They don't know how to talk to you, or it just was a weird experience for me. And also, just their knowledge about Don Wiley's case was another shock, because not many of them seem to know the details how their friend died. And the ones who knew, they were convinced that it was not an accident, right? So how they explained this whole thing with Don Wiley to me was that he was searching how infectious diseases affect the body, and like what makes them like almost like a potent, like what makes them deadly for the body or something. Like what is that element that makes certain diseases more deadly than the others? Or at least that's how I understood it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I see. Okay.
And he was looking for a way to battle that.
Right.
When it's affecting the body, he studied the proteins within the body to be able to fight against the virus.
Wow. So I guess potentially we know what happened with COVID, right? So when you are experimenting on infectious diseases, potentially you have a bioweapon that you can create, right? That only affects certain type of people. So let's say if I wanted to kill, again, I don't, but if I wanted to kill all Asians or all white people or all black people, I could potentially isolate the virus in a way that affects like one gene more than the other. And Don Wiley seems to me would be a perfect guy to to task him with something like that if the government wanted to. Just like hypothetical. I'm not saying he was doing that. I'm just saying the studies that he was involved in could potentially lead to a bioweapon like that.
Yes, he was a level 4 scientist, and he had access, or the potential access to all the deadly viruses. And but talking with all his colleagues and all that, they never indicated that he even had access to those viruses. He just studied them.
I see. So something he discovered was probably a threat to somebody. All right, let's dive into the whole thing. So the guy studying infectious diseases, including Ebola and, the influenza virus, which was potentially way more threatening to American population than Ebola was. And he discovers a few things that gets him the award, and then he goes living his life, and all of a sudden, after 9/11 attacks, what was it like? Do you remember timeline exactly when he was found? His car was found after 9/11.
November the 14th, 2001. Just so you're talking about 2 months.
Yeah, wow.
2 months later, and this is the time that not just the Memphis police, but all over the country was really hyped up on protection against terrorist attacks. We were in the process of doing certain things to protect our citizens in Memphis. Number one was having someone check our bridges every 30 minutes. Unfortunately, the day that Don Wiley's vehicle was found on the bridge, we had checked it prior to the vehicle being, but sometime after that, the officer was tied up on a call and did not get back until truck drivers started calling in on the vehicle being found on the bridge. Also, we were in the process of purchasing video cameras that would be directly lined on both our bridges. We have two bridges here in Memphis. It goes from Memphis to West Memphis, Arkansas.
Right. And we'll dive into this. Let me start from the beginning. Okay, so let's start Don Wiley's day that day. Walk me through. He arrives in Memphis. He doesn't live in Memphis. So let's tell people where he lives, why he's in Memphis, and then how all of this happens during the day. And then when do you come in and when the police finds the car? So let's start from the get-go. He arrives in Memphis for what reason? Where was he living? Was he alone in Memphis? Let's talk about all of it. Tell me a story, detective.
All right. On November 14th, Don Wiley flies into Memphis. He rents a car from the airport. He drives to his father's house in the Raleigh area of Memphis to stay. He does attend a meeting the next day on the 15th, early morning hours. First he gets up, he does a jog, he leaves a message to his father he'd be back. He goes home, showers, leaves and goes to the meeting at St. Jude. He returns back home to his father's residence and changes and goes to the meeting that they had at the Peabody Hotel. They were having a dinner that night. So
what was the dinner about? It was just a work dinner, like all scientists were there. What was the dinner about?
This was a St. Jude dinner function.
St. Jude Hospital,
St. Jude Hospital in Memphis, where Don Wiley was on the board.
Okay.
And he'd been on the board, I think, for about 9 years. So he's very familiar with the downtown area as well as Memphis. His father living here and his brother and sister-in-law living in just north of Memphis in the Millington area. So he goes to the dinner. That'll be on the 15th. And the dinner gets over with sometime around 9:30 or 10. He and a bunch of colleagues go to the bar in the Peabody Lounge. And he sits at the end towards where the waitresses pick their drinks up. They order their drinks. He was on the end of the bar and having conversations with anybody that would talk to him. A lot of the colleagues, and eventually they slowly, one by one, left. But there were other people, Memphians, that were there at the bar for other.
And that's typical for Wiley, because I did review your papers that you sent me, and people said that Wiley did make conversations with everyone. Like he was very talkative.
Yes,
so
very
he was
individual.
typical Wiley that day. Nothing was off
Yes.
in his character.
Yes.
So it's not that he was worried or anything. So he doesn't even know what's coming for him. Seems like it.
Exactly.
Right? Wow.
He sitting there at the bar. He drank. He and a couple of colleagues drank a couple of port wines. When they asked for a third, he said, "No, I'm through." Matter of fact, another customer tried to buy him another drink, and he wouldn't. He ordered 2 waters after that. So we know that he was there until he paid cash for the last one about 12:58 12:58 a.m. on the 16th. And he was last seen exiting the Valet Court area. So by himself. So we're assuming that he either valet parked or he parked in the parking garage there at the Peabody Hotel.
And so you're saying he could have either valeted or he could have parked himself, but he had to go through the valet anyway.
Yes.
Okay. So I know that valet person said he doesn't remember Don Wiley. So a former FBI agent and I talked about this, and he said, well, it's very hard to forget a man like Wiley because he was very skinny, tall, like in a way handsome. So I don't think that a person that had any contact with him would forget him that night.
Yes,
so
but Valet did not have contact with him.
That's right.
Yes.
So, I'm
he walked up
assuming
probably
he
to
just
his-
walked,
Yes.
right? Yeah, that's why he doesn't remember the guy. Okay, so then it leaves us with Don Wiley comes out late night. Well, he's in a way sober enough to drive, but not like on like the sharpest because he did have some drinks, right?
Yeah.
So he goes to the car. We don't even see what happens. Like, does he get in? Because there are no cameras at the parking lot, right?
There were cameras, but we did not pick him up. They didn't cover all of the parking garage.
Right, so
where-
his car
depends
was
on where
not
he
covered.
parked. Yes.
Interesting. All right.
So we don't know from a little after 1 o'clock in the morning when he left to little before 4 a.m. when his car was found on the bridge with the keys in the ignition, little damage to the vehicle up front
So
left.
next thing you do, excuse me, I'm interrupting, but next thing you do, you find his car on the bridge. Now explain that to me. Police gets a call from who? How do you find the car? In what condition? What bridge? All of that. Because we know, but they don't know. And like they're for the first time hearing this case right now.
The Hernando de Soto Bridge, which is the Interstate 40 bridge, is the north bridge in Memphis that leads into West Memphis. There is another bridge south, which is the I-55 bridge. It's further south down, south of downtown area. So this was the closest bridge to him.
Mm-hmm.
The problem was the vehicle was found in the right lane, just blocking traffic in a very busy interstate on the bridge, and it's very dangerous. A lot of tractor trailer rigs in the early morning hours are transporting, coming both east and west directions. So we started receiving calls to the dispatcher's office probably about 4:45 that morning, saying, hey, there's a car out here on this bridge and it's blocking the traffic and it's very dangerous. Somebody's going to hit it. He was parked close to the curb, but he wasn't up on the curb.
Right.
So, a lot of people were suspicious about that. And we had like 4 or 5 truckers that called in and they complained about it and said, you need to get somebody up here. So the dispatcher was waiting for the car that had checked the bridge earlier to come back and find out why this car is on the bridge.
Right. And he was not there at 3 a.m. because the guy who was tasked to check the bridge, like every 30 minutes or so, he was there, and Don Wiley was not there. But at like 4:15 or so, like he's already there? Is that the timing?
Well, at almost 4 o'clock in the morning
right.
was when the calls started coming in. The vehicle's there. The officer was tied up on a call in between this time. And so it took him a little while to get there. And he got there probably 4:15, 4:20. And when he rolled up, he saw the vehicle there. He did an inspection of it. He sees the keys in the ignition. He saw the damage to the front left. It was yellow paint on it, which in the downtown area, there's a lot of barricades that are painted this yellow color.
Mm-hmm.
And on the right side, he saw some damage on the undercarriage, as if he might have jumped a curb. But it couldn't have been the curb on the bridge because that curb is 10 inches high.
Right.
So it had to have been another curb somewhere else.
So, okay, this is good. Now we know the car is slightly damaged with the yellow paint that is very consistent with downtown area and like maybe with near Peabody Hotel, whatever, so he could have scratched the car there and jumped the curb. I would understand if someone ambushed him in the parking lot and knocked him out, put him in the car, they would be on a hurry and they would be worried because now they have a unconscious scientist that they are trying to get rid of in the car, and they're driving, of course, they are nervous, so they probably accidentally jumped the curb and ruined the side of the car. And okay, but then whoever it was, he had to have a partner, right? Because he left Wiley's car, because Wiley probably was not driving that hard car himself. I can't imagine that he was, right? So let's walk through the story, what makes sense here. So we have a car is damaged, but there's something else that's unusual about the car. There are no fingerprints in the car. And when a person drives, all of you who are drivers, you touch the wheel, you might touch the review mirror just because it's a rental car, you want to adjust it. So there should have been Wiley's prints all over the car, at least his prints, let alone like whoever, who had the car before. Like none of this was present except for one print, right? So somebody cleaned the car.
There was actually 2 prints or partial prints that were obtained. One of them was on the door panel on the driver's side. The other was on the passenger window, front passenger window, which is kind of strange because he's the only person who'd been in the vehicle.
Right.
Or supposedly was the only person in the vehicle.
Interesting.
Also, what was strange about this, Don's father lived in the Raleigh area, which is back east
That's what he was saying.
Dr. Wiley was very familiar with the Memphis area. So his car was found in the westbound lane headed toward Arkansas. So where was he going if he was driving that vehicle? Where was he going at that time of morning
Right.
into Arkansas? And where had he been for 3 hours before the car was found on the bridge?
Right. Because he was not on that bridge. So he was driving around somewhere. But the fuel
Somebody was
tank,
driving around somewhere.
somebody, exactly. Good point. And the fuel tank was full too, right? So it was not that he did, okay, so if you're driving around for 3 hours, the fuel tank would be probably affected. So whoever had the car, maybe they were not even driving. Maybe he was contemplating what's the best place to leave the body, throw him, in the water, whatever. So, at first look, and I really want to talk about every little detail we have. Like this is where we're gonna unload everything on people and let them make conclusions. So let's say it was premeditated. So this guy then had to know that he would end up in that Peabody hotel. He would also had to know that he would have a car and park, unless the plan was just surveil the guy and whenever you get a chance, like attack him. Like that would be an amateur doing the job, because a real professional would never allow himself to put himself in a situation where he's not in control. So whoever did this, they obviously thought about cleaning up the prints, right? He did a great job staying away from the cameras. So it was not somebody like an idiot who was like, oh, I have a grudge on Wiley, I'm going to kill him. So he was not an immature person doing this. But at the same time, he made mistakes though, because he risked a lot. I mean, think about this. He must have not known that the bridge was monitored, because why would you go and risk? What if you run with a police officer that's about to go check the bridge, right? Or he had to have information that whoever checked the bridge is not there anymore because he already did his check, and now it's your turn to go and do whatever you need to do and leave the car there. And keep in mind, prints were cleaned, right? So he had to take some time when he parked on that bridge to actually clean the damn car, unless he did it somewhere else and then he drove and only cleaned the wheel and because how do you see this? Like, if we were to imagine it as we were part of it and we're seeing it as a movie in our heads, so he had to drive the damn car unless he's wearing gloves, right? If he's wearing gloves and he cleaned the car before, then who the heck left the print? Like, I just don't understand. Like, what's your thought about this?
Well, let's go back first. If it was an abduction, we're better to abduct someone in a parking garage, 1:15 in the morning.
Right.
There's not a lot of people walking around
Right,
at
exactly.
that time.
So you think that was premeditated.
It would explain also the damage to the car.
Right.
He's got to get out of that garage.
Right.
How's he going to get out of that garage? Because they have barricades there or a guard, a gate that pulls down. So does he jump the curb and go around the gate arm? Gate is bumped by the front left bumper.
Right.
So
you're saying he didn't have the ticket to get out, so he had to somehow get out the barricade. That's what you're saying.
Pay for the ticket.
Right.
First
And
of all,
he couldn't pay for the ticket because he's
not if this was an abduction. Then
right. He wouldn't use his cards.
Party would not want it. No.
Did anyone check the garage, like the damage on the garage door? Like,
yes.
Was there damage?
I checked all of them, but through the years, they've been struck several times. Those gates have been replaced numerous times.
Yeah.
And
so
repainted.
you can't really say that it was the particular car that hit it.
No.
Dang. Okay, so let's say we don't have that. But again, like you said, there were some cameras in the garage. So this guy just risked that Wiley would park exactly where there were no cameras. Like, what if he parked somewhere where there were cameras? Then what was his plan?
I don't know.
Right.
You're taking a lot of risk.
Right.
I'm thinking that they know what he was driving. How? Surveillance. If this was an abduction, it had to be two individuals. One driving a tail car.
Want to get away.
And one driving Dr. Wiley's car because he's incapacitated this time. Where in the downtown area they would have gone to hold Dr. Wiley, interrogate him, or whatever the reason for them to be, accosting him. I don't know. There's plenty of places, plenty of old warehouses that was in the downtown area that have since been turned into garage, parking, businesses,
Right.
Condominiums.
So they had him for 3 hours somewhere, but if he was unconscious, he probably was unconscious all the time, right? Because here's the thing, I'll explain why I'm saying that. When Dr. Wiley was found, he was found in the water, but he had no water in the lungs. That means that he was already unconscious when his body was dropped in the water. He was probably dead already, and because he was not breathing water. So that means that if they ambushed him in the garage, that's where he got the fatal flaw in the head or something, because otherwise, like, they wouldn't have, like, bring him back for a second, interrogate him, and then knocked him unconscious again. Like, I don't know. Like, does that make sense to you? Or maybe they just drove around with his body, or met up somewhere to figure out where to throw his body, what would be the best option, or I don't know. Like, what would you say makes more sense here?
Well, if it was an accidental death, they're, caused harm to him and accidentally murdered him, trying to get some information, or it was an intentional, that I don't know. I'm not even sure exactly what happened, because.
But you're sure that he was murdered?
I'm pretty sure that he did not end up
Fall
in the river
yeah.
on his own accord.
Yeah, and we'll talk about
accidentally or not.
Exactly. And we'll talk about the button and everything, but I want to give people as many theories as possible. Could it have been a case where Wiley goes back to his car, someone ambushes him with a gun, doesn't knock him out, just instructs him to get in the car and sits on the passenger side? That way it explains if Wiley was nervous, he would hit the car himself because he's got a guy with a gun, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that would explain if they wanted an information or something from him, whether it was related to anthrax attacks or bioweapons that, like COVID and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was related to. For these 3 hours, they would have taken him wherever the predestination was, and he would be the one driving the car and nervous enough to maybe like hit the curb or something, right? They also would not allow him to pay the money because, then they would you would realize that, okay, so Wiley actually paid himself, got out there. I don't know. So two cases. He could have been unconscious, or he could have been under blackmail in the car, and that's why possibly, I don't know, we saw the print on the passenger side because someone was on the passenger side, like sitting on the passenger side, right? Or from the get-go, there were two attackers. They knocked him out, probably put him in the trunk or in the back seat, and one was sitting on the passenger side and one attacker was driving. In that case, that could be a possibility too, and that along the way they picked up a second car for the getaway vehicle from the breach. That would explain the time that they were trying to maybe orchestrate, okay, where are we leaving this guy? What are we going to do? But then it makes no sense, because why kill him without any interrogation? Like, if you want to kill him, and it's a professional hit, right? I wouldn't do any of this shit. I would just do a professional hit and that's it. I would kill him with either with a heart attack, something, or just throw him somewhere. I don't know. It's weird to do all this, not interrogate the guy, and then throw his body over the bridge. It makes no sense.
Well, there would be a reason for someone to dispose of a body in a river,
Mm-hmm.
because that was a fast-moving river.
They hoped he would never be found.
Well, or there'd be deterioration,
right,
to possible injuries. Dr. Wiley had facial nasal damage on his left nasal. He also was found to have a lot of trauma to his right ribs cage area. So when we get into when he was located and the autopsy, we requested he be brought back to Memphis, Shelby County Medical Examiner, to do the autopsy on him, which happened. when Dr. Smith had his press conference that was explaining the death of Dr. Wiley,
Mm-hmm.
he said that Dr. Wiley had the nasal damage. He also had the rib damage on the right side of his body, which are on two different sides.
Mm-hmm.
So if he lands on his right side, how the nasal damage get on the left side?
Right.
So
Unless someone hit him in the head, right?
Unless somebody beat him or something,
Right.
and caused that damage.
Mm-hmm.
But also in regards to his alcoholic level, we aren't able to ascertain exactly what his breath alcohol content was, because he's in the water for well over a month, and your body starts, fermenting the alcohol
Right.
inside. So therefore, you couldn't tell exactly how much alcohol he has drank, how intoxicated he was. There was an underlining health issue for Dr. Wiley that was verified with his wife, his ex-wife, his children,
Mm-hmm.
even colleagues. He suffered from brain seizures
Mm-hmm.
periodically. They weren't every day or anything like that.
Yeah.
But that brain seizure only lasted for several minutes.
Mm-hmm.
He never got out and under control. He was always under control.
Mm-hmm.
And he would always try to excuse himself if he's in public, if he's around his family. He'd go into the restroom area
So
to
he
try
had
to get
the
away from it.
hold
So
of
he,
it.
yes,
He
he
had the
had
hold of it.
control of it once it hit. So Dr. Smith's ruling on the cause of death, he explained it that Dr. Wiley had probably had one of these brain seizures as he's driving, and fatigue and alcohol will bring it on. And of course, he's been busy. He's had 2 full days. He was drinking alcohol that night, and that's what they were going on. That this caused a brain seizure, and he stopped on a bridge. He's going the wrong way and gets out of his car. And
Look at that. Well, here's the thing with us. We will get to the medical examiner and how effed up he was. But here's where his story falls apart, unfortunately for him, and he's dead now. But and for people who orchestrated this whole thing, really did Wiley, while he was having seizures, also had time to clean up the car from the prints? Is that what he did? When he was having seizures, he just like grabbed a cloth and just cleaned everything. And there's, well, if I'm going to have a seizure, let me just leave the car clean, right, from there. This makes no sense.
there was a couple of things that Dr. Smith did not explain.
Right.
And one of them was a button that was off of Don Wiley's.
You found the button, right? As I
Actually,
understand.
he found it.
Oh,
we went to
interesting.
check all the measurements on the bridge. He wanted all this information. We took him and several of his staff out to the bridge, exactly where it happened, where the car was found. When he went down, you go down about 12 feet to a walkway, a metal walkway, and which extends out about 3 feet under the bridge. When you're looking over the railing, this bridge, a walkway, a catwalk, is actually extends out about 3 feet. It's not much room. So he walks down and he's watching it, and then he gets down to a concrete pillar which extends from the bridge 15 to 20 feet out. On that concrete pillar was a button, a half button. And so he assumed that this had to have come from Dr. Wiley's clothing. So he tagged it and took it back to the forensic center for, when the body was found, we'd be able to ascertain whether or not
and
it's
it
actually
matched with the
yes.
Yeah.
Which it eventually did.
Right.
So we know that he was actually on that concrete.
Well, we know that Wiley was on that bridge and he was thrown away from there. That proves it. But you said that button somehow explains that whichever moron and a criminal did this, Wiley was a big man. So maybe in the process of throwing him off the bridge, he didn't realize that he would land on this concrete instead of the water, right? Because that's how probably the button ended up there and in broken condition, right? but then he had to go down and maybe push the body again into the water.
Mhm.
And he left no prints at
Yeah.
all. Wow.
No. And Dr. Smith also assumed that he pulled over on the bridge. Dr. Wiley
Mhm.
pulled over on the bridge to check the damage to the vehicle that he might have caused.
Which no
And
one
so he
would have
gets
done.
out, and why stop on a bridge to check damage in a wrong way, that total different wrong direction that your father lives in?
Right.
So he gets out, he walks around, and as he's walking around, the vibration that the truck drivers' vehicles are causing and the wind of gust from fast-moving tractor trailers might have pushed him over the guardrail. He would have had to have been standing on the 10-inch curb in order to be over his center of gravity. So we have to assume now, if it's Dr. Smith's version of how he went over the bridge is actually correct, he had to have been standing on the 10-inch curb right there up against the guardrail. And I can't see that either. I mean, the damage is on the undercarriage.
Right.
Why are you standing above
Right.
the car view?
You would
You
probably.
would be on
yeah.
the pavement, which
Exactly.
his center of gravity is not higher than the
Nothing
guardrail.
about this case, Rob, makes any sense. Like a guy like Don Wiley, who's extremely smart. I mean, we can agree on that at least. Like we don't care what he did. He was smart. No smart man stops on that bridge that dangerous, no matter what you want to check, no matter what it is. Like even if your engine doesn't work, you're gonna try and push the car over the other side or stop right before the bridge somewhere to check the damage. So obviously it was not Don Wiley who did that. Someone else did that. But and of course you have the button, you have the cleaned up prints that makes no sense. I mean, how is this case an accident? I just don't understand. Now tell me, I know that feds got involved right away. So tell me your story now. This happens. Don Wiley is missing. At the point you don't know what's going on. You only have the car. You retrace the steps. As I understand, no conversations on his phone were subpoenaed, which I think could have had other leads, like what this guy was involved in. Was he talking to military? Was he talking to some important people quietly that he couldn't disclose the information? Here's what I know. When you're working with the military or any type of bioweapon, or like what he was working on with these kind of influenza cases and stuff like that, you can't even tell your family. This is very secret. So you have the clearance to such things, and you are not even able to talk to your wife about it. So no one would have known. The only person and the only thing that could tell you what he was really working on was his cell phone. And the conversation should have been subpoenaed. I don't know if FBI did this, but once you get on the case, all of a sudden you kind of find yourself like by yourself, like investigating this case, and then feds get involved. And they call you up and it's like, hey, we got this. Don't worry about it. And they are constantly communicating with Washington, which was another weird thing. So tell me about that part now.
Okay. About a week into, I wasn't given the case for 5 days. Like I said,
what they were doing these 5 days, do you know?
They were following up, trying to figure out who he was. Once they found out who he was, when St. Jude started calling and wanting to know whether he missing persons, hospitals to see, because he didn't show up for the meeting that Friday. Once they realized who he was and what he was driving, they matched it up with the vehicle we towed off the bridge. When they went in and checked the vehicle, in the glove box was the contract with his name on it. No other information, how he paid for it or anything.
Wait a second. For 5 days, they didn't check the glove department for the contract? For 5 days, they didn't know the name?
Well, when they sent the vehicle to the lot, it was just an abandoned car. Realistically, that's the way the police looks at it. Somebody walked off from
the first thing I would have done is check the damn glove department. That's where everyone keeps the freaking documents.
When they towed it to the lot, unless you specifically put on there to be held in the tunnel, it goes to a lot. And that's where it was. And when I got there to take the car to the lot.
Change the freaking system. Change the system.
Well, I think they've learned their lesson. But
it's so dumb. It's crazy.
But the FBI got in. I got a phone call from Sturgis, who was over the Safe Street Task Force, the FBI agent, and he said, "Well, we're going to assign someone, to help you as a liaison. If you need anything from us." Well, luckily for me, they assigned Sergeant Mike Ryle, and Mike worked in homicide for the previous 2 years. He had just left and went to the Safe Street Task Force. So we worked on numerous cases together. So we had a good rapport with one another. So anytime I needed anything that I couldn't do, like in Massachusetts, Boston, I needed statements from all his colleagues that had left Memphis and went back to tell me, what happened during Memphis, when did you last see him and all that. So I had the FBI along with the Harvard University's police take statements from all those people. While I'm slowly investigating the case or trying to look for leads, they would always contact me back. Is there anything I can do? Or we're not going to open a case file, which I found out later that yes, they did. They did. And
why would they lie to you though? Why would they say? Do you have any explanation for that? Like they told you we're not going to open the case. Why lie to a lead detective on the case? Like you can just say, hey, we opened the case. We're in on it. And, we can help you with whatever. You can help us. Like, why not do that? Why secretly investigate this? Or maybe investigate this. You know what I mean? Like, what is that? What is up with that?
Having dealt with the FBI in the past.
Yes.
They're all about obtaining all the information themselves so that because realistically, they all think they're smarter than local police and all that, which
it's FBI.
At times, I'm not bad-mouthing the FBI, but there have been occasions that they didn't show common sense, which a lot of times I find out a lot of brainy people do not have common sense. I would rather have a street police officer that knows the street, that becomes an FBI agent to deal with, which later on I did. But anyway, Mike Ryle was my liaison. He was a Memphis sergeant working with the task force with the FBI. So he kept in contact every day. I'd brief him on new information I had in regards to the receipts, the not the phone records, the credit card records. He said, well, we're gonna subpoena all of his credit card records. And I said, I didn't need a subpoena. I just called and I gave them the situation, and they sent me to a supervisor, and they gave me the information I needed that he hadn't used any of his credit cards. The information we gave.
So he was the guy who was paying in cash, like you said. It was like almost like a habit for him. That I like, again, not to think too hard on this stuff. Like sometimes people just prefer cash. Like, there are people who are like, F the bank, like I don't want these statements, whatever. But then people who are working on secret stuff, they always tend to pay in cash. I know this because I worked with, former SEALs, Delta Force, people who actually worked for the government, and they always pay in cash. Like, could his habit be more of a habit that he acquired because of what he was working on? Like, do you think that plays at least like a 1% in this? Like,
I think that he paid in cash because my personal situation was whenever we went out of town on investigation, we could not charge any alcohol if we had any alcohol on the bill. So I think he got, when it came to, he just had a meal. It was free. Probably had drinks there. But when he got to the bar, he had to pay for them. So he paid cash for them.
Interesting.
You can't use a credit card from Harvard to pay for alcohol. I assume that is a policy they have. He was with the police department.
Probably. So then what happens? So FBI is secretly investigating this case. They are telling you they are not opening the case, but they are, though. And okay, so we don't even know. You don't have the files. You don't even know what they found, correct?
Correct.
Crazy.
I was told that D.C. was very interested in this investigation, but they were monitoring only at this time.
You mean later, monitoring only?
Yeah.
If they find something, we'll shut them up. So just keep your distance.
that's one reason that they
yeah.
assigned a liaison
Right,
there. So I
right.
would brief him every day.
Wow.
And he happened to be a good friend of mine. So why would I
Wow.
not tell him about the
Right.
investigation?
That's probably
So they had
intentional.
all the information that I had. However, I wasn't getting anything basically in return. So I really found out later after, and just jumping ahead, after we found Dr. Wiley,
Mhm.
the autopsy, the ruling was accidental. It was time for the FBI to close out their file. What file?
Exactly.
You said
Like-
you didn't have a file.
Close
So,
up.
and I don't fault the poor FBI agent who is 7 months pregnant on desk duty that has to follow up with this to get. She couldn't get Dr. Wiley's wife to fill out this questionnaire that has to be filled out in order for them to close the case out. So she contacted me and asked me about contacting Dr. Wiley's wife to see if she would graciously fill this 400 or 500 questionnaire out.
So you're saying for them to close the file, they needed the wife to answer all these questions they have.
Absolutely.
And what did the wife say? Because I
When
know
I
that.
called the wife, I told her
Yeah.
I would graciously call Dr. Wiley's wife and talk with her because we had a good rapport.
Mhm.
And when I called her, she said, "Absolutely not." And
I would
I said, I
imagine.
don't. Is
Good for
there,
her.
I said, "Is there a reason why?" And she goes, "Have you ever seen the questionnaire?" She said,
Mhm.
like every 10th question is something to do with the sexual nature between the two and all. She said, "I'm not answering that trash."
Yeah.
She said, this has nothing to do with the death of my husband.
Right.
So she said, "Absolutely not." And then she said,
Smart woman.
she said, if they would be gracious enough to bring you to Boston, because I'm not coming back to Memphis,
Mm.
then I would like to thank you in person for the job you did.
Mm.
So I contacted the FBI, and without a blink, she said, "Absolutely, we'll fly you up there."
Mm.
So myself, 2 FBI, they have to do everything in twos, a field agent out of Atlanta, and this desk duty
Mm.
FBI agent, and I met in Boston, and I went to her attorney's office, and she listened to him, and again refused.
Good.
I will not
I think
answer the questions you want me to answer.
Tell me what you think. I think she knows that Wiley was killed. I think she also knows that there's very, very little she can do to change the official, conclusion on Wiley's case. And as I understand, his brother was also pissed because family is not buying this, just like we're not. Tell me what happened when medical examiner, which we will get to, by the way. This guy is so shady. I mean, we'll talk about his case because you ended up on a different case with this crazy person, and I call him crazy because he was. We'll talk about the case, but first tell me, when Wiley's brother attended the hearing and was told that your brother just, accidentally fell off the bridge, we can't really have any more explanations, but that's kind of what happened. What did he say?
Well, we had a press conference in the
Mhm.
director's conference room, and a lot of people showed up, a lot of media,
Mhm.
and Greg showed up. So Greg is Don's brother. We're sitting here listening to this explanation of how he vibrated on the bridge in Augusta. The wind from tractor trailer rig must have pushed him over the rail, and he died. While he's explaining this, I'm thinking, what in the hell?
Right.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because I've been on that bridge.
Right.
Tractor trailer rigs are going by. That wind is not going to push anybody off that bridge. The vibration from these trucks, you can feel it, but it's not swaying the bridge or
At
anything
all.
like that.
Yeah.
I also glanced over at Greg Wiley, and he turned around and glanced at me, and he had a glare in his eye that I could tell he wasn't buying it either. So when the press conference, or while they were still talking to Dr. Smith, I excused myself. I left out. I went down to the homicide office to get my head wrapped around what I just heard. I've never this much of bullshit coming from a doctor, a professional doctor that I've looked up to. But his explanation made absolutely no sense whatsoever. And I just sat down at my desk when Greg Wiley walks around and looks at me and says, "What the hell was that bullshit?" And there wasn't nothing I could say. I said, "I don't know."
Wow.
I was not made aware of the ruling of what he was going to say until afterwards.
So even the lead detective, you, on the case, didn't know what this crazy person came out and told people. And as I understand, FBI just packed their bags after they heard this. And they were like, fine by us. It was an accident. Like, It was an accident. We're leaving. Case closed. That was it.
Basically, yes.
Wow.
And here's your case, Sergeant Shimwell, your new case. So the only thing I did left on the case was I had to go in and close it out. Ruling
How did his
death of
family
accident.
How did his family feel about it? Because, okay, so one more thing, and then we can answer that question, and then we can move to O.C. Smith because we've got like a time pressed here.
Okay.
But how did his family feel about this?
I didn't really talk to his wife about that.
Mm-hmm. But obviously, brother was
but-
like, it's
but,
a shit case.
I mean, she was
Yeah.
broken up. You know, her
Yeah.
husband had finally he'd been missing. He'd been found. He's been identified. So now we got a funeral.
Right.
And this is all over the Christmas holidays. He was
Wow.
found prior to Christmas. She and her family had plans on going to Iceland, where she's from,
Right.
and for holiday season. And of course, they had to go without Don. So I had to contact her in Iceland and give her, you know, the information that we had found him. He has been identified through dental records. So now she's got a plan for a funeral. So
Right.
getting to talk to her about how she felt, I could tell just by talking to her on the phone, because we had built a rapport.
Right.
She trusted me from day one when I told her that I am not investigating this as a suicide.
Right.
That is the obvious conclusion to this.
Which they tried to push in the beginning. Like,
Yes.
they tried to say that Don Wiley committed suicide. And when they tested the waters with the family and they realized that, okay, they're going to go bonkers if we say that it was a suicide. So let's say it was an accident. Like, because at that point, family at least gets some money. Maybe we can shut them up and, you know, close the case, and kind of, they wouldn't even understand what hit them, but at least there will be some money for compensation. Do you think that whoever these guys were, whoever tried to put this case in the corner as a closed case, whoever did this, maybe had this in mind, that at least there will be money, at least there will be something that will shut them up?
You know, I don't really know. I mean,
Right.
I know that Dr. Wiley and his wife,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she was also a Harvard professor,
Right.
very intelligent lady.
Mm-hmm.
And so I assume that they had, you know, money, you know,
Right.
a death benefit. Even if it was suicide, the
Right.
money would be there later after the total investigation.
Right.
A accidental ruling would go ahead and close it out. They could pay her off.
Right. Interesting.
So that is an option. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I do not know personally, because I didn't ask her that. That's as an
Right.
investigator, that's not helping me find who's responsible for this death. And
Oh, I
believe
would
me,
be all over. Maybe it's my journalist
I
talking
had
to me. I would be like, I got to know every little bit of this. But again, I'm a journalist. I ask questions. That's what I do. But okay, let's move to O.C. Smith. This guy is corrupt as hell. We're talking about the medical examiner here. So, I mean, other than the fact that he's coming, excuse my language, like with this weird theories out of his ass, I don't even know where he's like getting this shit. He also completely disregarded the injury on Wiley's face, as I understand. He never really mentioned it, like how he got it, like what happened with his face. Okay, we understand from the fall, the ribs, we understand. He probably hit the concrete and then the water, even though he didn't say that. As I understand, he said
No.
he hit the water directly and
Yes.
somehow got the ribs broken like that. So all of this is just, excuse me, but shit. So tell me about this guy.
Well, just a
Yeah.
point. Even if he went over the rail, he
Right.
hit the rail on the
Uh-huh.
because the concrete barrier is further down left. If he went over that rail like he explained it and landed in the water on his right side,
Mhm.
if he fell over it, he would have had to have hit the railing on the catwalk. There's a railing on that walk as well.
Mhm.
So he didn't really explain that, and he disregarded the button altogether. When he knew, when he got the clothing and everything else, that the button matched up to the button that was found on the concrete pillar.
Sorry, it just hit me for a second. I have to stop this. You said he found the button?
Yes, he found the button when he
Was
was
he
taking
alone?
his measurements.
Was he
He-
alone when he found the button?
Actually, he was. We're all above looking down, and
So
he had a couple of other people from the forensic center with tape measures.
Okay,
tape
so
and a
he
crime
did
scene
not
guy.
just randomly
No.
put it out of his pocket. He actually
No.
found it
Yeah,
that
yeah,
we
he
know
wa-
of.
He walked around on the concrete pillar to be able to see that, and he found it.
I see.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So just wanted to make sure that he
Yeah.
didn't put the button out of his pocket and say, "Oh, guys, he was here. I found it," or
yeah.
something. So there were other witnesses. That's because I wouldn't put anything past this guy. And people will know why in a second. Who was O.C. Smith? Talk to me about this crazy man.
O.C. Smith was our criminal pathologist at the forensic center there in Shelby County, and he had been working there for a while before. I remember him when I was a patrolman coming out on a scene, and I was impressed with him, his knowledge, and talking to him, and he was very flamboyant. He would talk with you, and as he's doing things, let you know how smart he is. I guess I don't know,
Right.
but it was interesting.
So he was not a dumb guy. He didn't
Oh,
make
no,
a mistake.
absolutely
He knew exactly what he was doing, ruling this as an accident. At least he was good at his job. He might have been crazy, but he was good at his job, so he didn't make a mistake. He was knowledgeable enough to know that what he was saying was bullshit. So moving on.
All right,
What happened
when
next?
he had the press conference and gave the ruling,
Mm-hmm.
my view of him changed dramatically.
Right.
I'm going, how could you? There's no way that happened. And here you're standing up in front of, everyone. And of course, I'm looking around the room, not only at Greg Wiley, but at my staff, command staff, and they're all shaking their heads, yes, like, yes. Oh, several of them were ex-homicide investigators. How are you? Well, they were good buddies with Dr. Smith.
Mm.
So what happened with Dr. Smith, in January, he had applied for the criminal pathologist job for the military, which is a very prestigious job, very high-paying job.
Mm-hmm.
He and 3 others had applied for that position. Well, the military went to Dr. Tom Malik and hired him. Well, Dr. Malik was our weekend cutter, so that Dr. Smith could be off. He was our weekend cutter, and that was a slap in the face to Dr. Smith, that you hire my weekend cutter.
Right.
He was in the Navy. He was a pathologist.
This is very important. So O.C. Smith was related to military. He was never working on the cases that he bragged about. All that is bullshit, but he was related to military. This is a big thing.
Yes,
This
yes.
is a big thing.
He was a medic, but what happened was in January they picked Dr. Malik, someone who did not apply. Dr. Malik was about to retire, and he was going to go into a medical. He had already got a position locked in when he retired. Dr. Malik accepted the position, and to Dr. Smith, that was a slap in his face.
Right.
Here I am, the head pathologist, and
Right.
you take my weekend cutter. I could see with his arrogance, his ego,
Right.
he was that way. So that was in January 2022, just after the ruling.
Right.
So a couple of months later, the police respond to a bomb mechanism in the back of a truck at the forensic center. So they get there and they see what looks like the makings of a bomb on the back of a pickup truck. You're sitting on the back of a pickup truck. So we end up getting the bomb techs out there. They confiscate it and all that, and sure enough, they do the little deal. Well, this goes on for a couple of months, and the police don't do anything. They have no idea who did this. The investigation went short. That investigation
hold on. So I got to ask some questions here. So you guys find a bomb, and it is a bomb. It's a real bomb. And
or had the makings of a real bomb.
Right.
Yes.
And someone was trying to, like, do something with. And then police does nothing? It's just they are like, okay, well, let's figure out what happened here. Like,
in between, our bomb tech works at a burglary unit, and he's working with the ATF. You got to send everything to the ATF in order to make sure that, yes, it had all the components of a bomb, which it actually did. So it's a process. And then, there was no lead. Where the bomb was found, there was no cameras.
Leads, no cameras.
At this forensic center. And so for 2 months, 3 months, there was no action going forward on it. There was no big hoopla from the media regarding this, very little small article in the newspaper. So we got to do something better, bigger, to bring the attention. Mm-hmm. He, after the first bomb, hired an ex-military individual who he was in the military with for security.
So
who was kind of a Nazi type guy. It's my way or the highway. We're locking this place down. We need cameras, this and that, checking people, in and out. And he really rubbed the rest of the staff, which for the viewers' information, we had the #1 forensic staff in the country with the expertise level from all the individuals involved.
In this bomb case?
Well,
in general.
And just in general.
That makes sense. Memphis is a very dangerous place. You would think that, you operate with the best
doctors.
Right.
So 3 months passed, and we get this call that, well, I'll tell you how it happened. I came into work one morning, and I seen, it was buzzing in the lieutenant's office, and I'm walking by, and one of my sergeants sat beside me, Bill Ashton, said, O.C. Smith had a bomb tied to his neck last night. And I said, what? Yeah, barbed wire around his face and bomb on his neck and all that. But the way Bill said it, I could tell he didn't believe it. He goes, you'll wait and you'll see. So surely as I'm standing there, I just sat down, Shimwell. So I go into the lieutenant's office, and there's Dr. Smith. And he turns and looks at me. And I see the lack of injuries to him, that he had been wrapped in barbed wire in his face and tied a bomb tied around him, an improvised landmine tied around him. The bomb tech had to come out. They had to cut it out. The tech was an ex-homicide investigator as well. He's a bomb tech now. He goes out. He's doing his job. They take the bomb. They blow it. ATF's involved. Yes, it had all the makings of a bomb. It was an improvised land bomb, which is 2 cans. One slides over the other with a single hole going in between with a wire attached to a battery that comes out. And if any of the 2 sides of the can touched, it would set the bomb off. That hole in that can were so small, there was no way that wire was hooked up to the battery. There's no way.
What does that tell you? What does that tell you? That did someone, poor O.C. Smith, did someone catch him, ambush him, and put it, or something else happened?
Late at night was when this occurred. After everybody's gone, except for the overnight person, and they're busy. He's in a laundry area. It goes out the laundry area, goes to the parking garage where he parks his truck, his work truck. He's coming out, and he says that someone comes around the corner, throws something in his face. He tries to block that, and he falls to the ground. The guy hits him, takes him down to the ground, and then starts wrapping his face with barbed wire. Then takes and barbed wire on a chain and chains him to the metal grid over the glass that's out there, looking into the laundry area. ties him to it, like a crucifixion, and then ties this bomb around his neck. First of all, whoever did this got a set of gonads bigger than any elephant, because you're carrying. First, how did you get barbed wire, this Cossack acid that was thrown in your face, and this bomb all to the scene? These chains, he locked. He's got all kind of multiple pockets to put all this in.
Let me explain to people what's happening. Guys, O.C. Smith, the coroner, a medical examiner of Don Wiley, after Wiley's case is over, ends up with a bomb tied on his neck, but there's a twist here. He says that someone came after him the same way, by the way, as we talked about. Don Wiley was probably ambushed in the parking lot. O.C. Smith said he was ambushed in the parking lot as well. Somebody came after him. And the problem is, though, he does not have the injuries to prove that someone actually did it to him. And he's like miraculously injury-free for such a wire on his face. And he said he was hit in the head or something. Where were those injuries? Like, did he...
where his injuries were?
Mm-hmm.
Very little injuries.
Wow.
When I walked in, and here's something that we do as investigators. We want pictures of all of his injuries.
Right.
We will call a crime scene out there, but we also take Polaroid photographs. Polaroid pictures seem to pick up blood in car and fabrics of seats in the car. And in this case, the chemical agent that was thrown in his face, he claims. And another thing about Dr. Smith.
What was the chemical agent? Sorry,
it was some kind of Cossack acid.
What did you see the burns? Did you see any burns?
I seen redden on his forehead, around his eyes, around his face. What I didn't see was Dr. Smith always wore a long john sleeve under his scrubs.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have them. What he did have was he had red marks, a perfectly circular red mark on his hands, not on his arms at all, where he claimed he put his hands up to block the Cossack acid.
Right.
What's going to happen? You throw water or anything on it, it's going to run down your arm.
Of course.
It's going to come on your face. So when I saw that, when I walked in, he turned around and looked at me. It looked to me like he had some of the sun, when you go to the sunbed, you have those little plastic goggles you put on your eyes.
Uh-huh.
It looks like he had done that over his eyes and sponge tapped all this calcium acid to redden his face.
He was a medical examiner. He knew what was not going to threaten his actual life, and he could orchestrate that easily.
I can't ruin my face. So, and looking at his hands and not seeing his long john shirt, he had it on when he sponged down the Cossack acid, but he did not think to pour some down his arm or touch his arm to redden his arm whatsoever. So I knew in the lack of, he had a few puncture wounds from the barbed wire, probably when he was moving around.
Right.
It was old, rustic barbed wire. If somebody would have wrapped his face in barbed wire, it would have been tore up.
Right.
And that's the very first
Just
thing. That's the very first thing that I learned when the other sergeant told me. He goes, "Better you than me," because they all knew it too. And this is the
So he pretty much told you, like you say it, that he did it to himself.
All the evidence pointed right at him. Plus, he came in with a half-written incident report of how it happened. This is a big deal. And you write me 3 to 4 sentences, 1 paragraph of how it happened.
A professional medical examiner who knows how these things should be written out, who knows that he needs to include all the details in this, and it happened to him. And he just comes with one paragraph.
Paragraph to explain what happened.
Okay, so now people are confused. Don Wiley dies. This guy botches the case. FBI says, you know what? Good enough for us. O.C. Smith said, well, medical examiner that is tied to military said that it was an accident. FBI packs his bags, goes, never gives anything to Robert. The lead investigator on the case, you would think he would get some of the conclusions by the FBI, what they found. Yeah. None of this is present. And then, what is it, like years or months after? What was the time period between?
Well, it was January when he was turned down for the
Yeah.
job. So that's just 1 month away from when we found the body and he did the autopsy on Dr. Wiley.
Wow.
It's 2 more months when the first bomb, or a month and a half when
So
the
it
first bomb
take
was
less
found.
than 6
So,
months. Less
yes.
than 6 months. This guy orchestrates some weird shit, bombing of his own self, and puts like some crazy stuff on his face. So, okay, what's the goal here? Do you think that he got himself in some shady waters with Wiley? He had to say what he had to say. And maybe he hoped that whoever, and this is speculation, we don't have the proof of this, but I'm just looking at the case. So this guy single-handedly botched Wiley's case, O.C. Smith, single-handedly. And then FBI somehow said, you know what, we're good with you. It's done. So do you think that he was somehow involved in whatever happened to Wiley, and then he got really upset that they chose someone else over him on this job that they probably either promised or hinted that he would have? I don't know. Like something pissed him off so bad that he would do this.
I don't know if the Wiley case had anything to do with this bomb stuff. I don't have any information saying it did.
Right.
However,
but it's weird.
It does go to his mental state at this time.
Right.
And he was waiting for this job. He got turned down less than a month, and they hired his weekend cutter. And I know his ego, and I know how he is. So I got to do something now. And I don't know, and I hate to speculate that they were one and the same. I don't know that. I can't say that. But I can say that his mental state was failing. And his arrogance of he's smarter than everyone played against him.
Yeah.
I mean, we knew on day one, well, I say we, I mean the investigators, not necessarily the upper management. Again, the same friends that were there backing him on Dr. Wiley's case were there 6 months later. We got to do something about this. We're starting a task force. Well, I had just made lieutenant. I stayed in homicide at this time, cleaning up cases, training some new investigators. When this was given, give it to Lieutenant Shimwell. So next thing you know, I have 30-something agencies in the task force showed up the first day. We moved the investigation to the federal building. And as we started the investigation and we started looking at the evidence, and the investigators, one by one, started leaving. By the time we indicted Dr. Smith, there was only 5 agencies left.
Wow.
Involved.
So it's funny you said his mental state started failing after Wiley. I wonder, I often have this case. Again, we are not saying this is what happened, but you have to consider all cases, all scenarios. If Dr. Wiley was hurt and killed because of some kind of governmental thing that was going on with it, was Anthrax attacks, and we'll get to that little detail that you wrote down in your notes as well, whether it was Anthrax or some type of Fauci-related bioweapons or whatever, then they would need a fall guy, a man that would do what they needed to do, like O.C. Smith, for example. But to get the fall guy, well, you have to have something on them, manipulate them, maybe brainwash them. And it's funny that you say that his mental state were completely nuts, because how old was he again when this happened?
Dr. Smith?
Yeah, with the bomb case.
Dr. Smith, I believe, was probably in his late 50s.
Late 50s, right? All right. So this guy goes through entire career, pretty well. He's respected doctor, all of that. Then Wiley's case happens, and all of a sudden he's a bunker case. It's crazy. It just makes no sense, Robert. All this time, 50-something, he was just fine. Yeah, he was an egoistic person, get it. He was probably a narcissist, probably told a lot of lies, but he was functioning. He was good at his job, and then Wiley's case happens, and he just goes nuts.
Well, I can tell you this.
That's
when
crazy.
we started interviewing the other doctors at the forensic center, they would not meet us at the forensic center. They would only meet us somewhere else.
Why?
And one of them, when she got into my car to do an interview, she looked at me and she said, "What took y'all so long?" I said, "We had a lot of other leads that we had to follow up on." She goes, "We all know he did it." So they all knew it. I mean, you're talking about other
Wow.
intelligent doctors that are looking at this, especially blood spatter expert, who you throw anything, she knows the patterns and all that.
Right.
And she saw that there was none going down his arm as well.
Crazy. Crazy. Well, okay, let's talk about that anthrax note that they were checking Wiley for, and it's a big thing.
Yes.
So again, guys, you got to remember Wiley gets lost and goes off rail or whatever, gets killed right after the anthrax attacks. And he's not the only one. We'll talk about David Kelly in Britain, who actually exposed Bush administration, and Tony Blair. Saddam doesn't have the weapons of mass destruction. This is bullshit, because he was the scientist. He was a microbiologist. He was the scientist. He was a weapons inspector. He was the only guy who would have known if there were any weapons of mass destruction. But there were none. And he ended up telling it to a journalist quietly. Unfortunately, this journalist ended up not being professional enough to protect him. So his name got out there through this journalist, as I understand. And next thing you know, he ended up dead. And they said it was a suicide, just like they tried with Wiley, but it didn't work out for them. So back to Wiley's case, you got a strange call during this investigation. Tell me about that.
I got a call from the liaison for the FBI, Mike Ryle, who was again sergeant working in the task force, and it was an ex-homicide in Florida.
Do you trust Mike?
Oh, absolutely.
So they
absolutely.
If anything, it's not him. He probably was used.
No.
Probably
of course, he's under he's under directive of the FBI.
Right. So he's just doing what they're telling him to do.
Information he gives.
Right.
Well, he told me when he called, he goes, they're going to go ahead and subpoena his credit cards. And I said, I already have that information. They weren't used. They hadn't been used since I think it was 10/11.
Right.
You know, this is in November when this occurred. So I got the balance, everything. They were forthcoming with all the information regarding credit cards. So he said, well, they want to follow up to see if he might have ever been in New Jersey. And I said, well, you know, he said there's a Buckman lab there that is about 6 miles from where the resin that's been was sent out from a post office box from a post office about 6 miles from the Buckman lab in New Jersey.
So explain that better. So they want to subpoena his credit cards. You have the credit cards. You say like, well, I have this credit card, but they say, no, we want all of it because we want to know if he ever was in New Jersey. Okay, why? Because anthrax attacks happened where?
Just that they were mailed out from a post office address in New Jersey, 6 miles from the Buckman lab.
So they are looking at Wiley as a suspect. So they were looking at Wiley as a possible suspect. Otherwise, why would they want to know?
He didn't say. I didn't ask, but I assumed.
You assumed
they're doing something, and that's how I knew they had a file going on.
Right.
And so
they
should be. I mean, it's so due diligent. They should be doing that.
Exactly. With that, I agree, because I know for a fact one of the scientists will join us in a second. I know for a fact that they had files on all scientists that were even closely related and had the access to. Well, here's the thing. Don Wiley might not have worked on anthrax per se, but he had the access and clearance. So everyone who had the clearance was under suspicion back then. And then Wiley dies all of a sudden? Like, what? You know what I mean? So I'm not saying Don Wiley had anything to do with it. I'm saying he could have known something. So what happened next? Like, did they get the...
They went ahead and subpoenaed all the...
And they never gave you anything?
Yes. After the case was closed, information started coming in from what they had. I already had the information verbally over the phone about that. So I didn't really need it. But they went out and they brought all the information, had it sent over for the
Did
case
they
file.
find something? Did they find something? No. I see. So it was all clean. All right. Well, before we wrap up this part, as a lead detective on the case, do you think Don Wiley was murdered?
I don't believe that he jumped off the bridge. I don't believe he committed suicide at all. I can say that 100%. I don't believe the explanation that Dr. Smith said about how he fell off the bridge.
Right.
Total bullshit.
Total bullshit.
So now whether he was murdered or not, I can't rule out that he was not. And as an investigator, that's what I wanted to do. I needed to look in. There were leads that I needed to follow up on. Number one, I could have looked into the airport that's in the direction of where the car was parked. If you're two guys, they're in a car, they drop this car off, he gets in the other one, they drive to an airport to go back to wherever they're from. I would use the Little Rock Airport more so than the Memphis International Airport. I mean, there's leads like that that needed to be followed up.
The print on the car was never followed up that you know. Not. So, yeah.
There were things that we still had open that we needed to follow up on. They
so
could have gave us some of those answers.
Quick question. Who forced this? Okay, I get the FBI. They packed their bags. They left. Well, why didn't family or just local police, pushed back that this is stupid? I'm not closing this case. Did you have the authority to push back?
No.
Who forced you to close the case? That
would be the deputy chief.
Okay, this is interesting. Yeah. Deputy chief pushed for closing the case. Why? Did he not listen to his lead detective who was saying, hey, this is not over?
You're talking about a deputy chief that was a lieutenant homicide and at one time was a homicide investigator. Parents, sometimes when people are there, they think they're smarter and they see things when they don't have the information to make that decision.
Or when they are blackmailed.
They're
or when
up
they
there
are pushed.
Monday morning quarterback in the director's office, or the chief's office. They're not coming down there and incorporating me into anything until they want me to do something.
Right.
In Garden Review. And like they wanted us to go back and talk to all the banquet staff at the Peabody Hotel. These people are not going to remember one person out of 150 people that were there unless there is a disturbance or some kind of incident. And they all said, that, it was a smooth running bike. We don't know. The only reason that the bar back recognized him was because he talked to him.
Right.
And he saw who he was because he was sitting at the end of the bar.
So you're saying the deputy chief, well, you don't know. We can't say who was talking to deputy chief, who convinced him that this case was, I'm assuming he was not a dumb guy. And when you look at, I don't have to be a detective, Robert, even though I'm an investigative journalist, I don't have to be a detective to know that you have to find some prints in the car. If it's an accident and the guy has some seizures and leaves the car, he probably doesn't have enough time to go back and clean the car. He also would not have stopped on the damn bridge because he was a smart man. He was not a retard to understand that this is danger. Like seizures are secondary. Like this is your priority danger. Mm-hmm. Stopping right here. Somebody might wreck you, from the behind. So all of this, a chief was not smart enough. If I see it, he didn't say. Of course he saw it. So maybe somebody talked to him and said, hey, buddy, this investigation is over. Can you exclude that?
No.
Right.
No.
Right.
There's no way this investigation was over.
Right.
They had a lot of things that we could have done further. Right. But once they made the decision it's closed.
That was it.
That's it for me. And here's your next case.
Do you think if we were to reopen this case, and if I was to try and reopen this case, do you think that we might find something more? We might be able to at least make it so that the case is not ruled as an accident, even if we can't find the guilty party. Do you think we can at least leave it as murder unsolved?
This is the fourth or fifth director over the Memphis Police Department. I never worked for her, so I don't know what decision she would make, so I can't really say. But if you're asking to me or any other true investigator, there are things that we need to look into.
Right.
So is there a chance? I hope so. I hope that somebody will take the interest. If nothing else, he had children and a wife, and even an ex-wife that are still good friends with him, that need an explanation, a real explanation of how their loved one died.
Right.
And we do not have that.
Well, as a country, we need an explanation how our level 4 scientist who was working on such important cases, especially after COVID and what we saw these things can bring when scientists are manipulated into bullshit like that, we need an explanation. How does guy like Wiley die like this? And we don't know. We don't have any answers. So, well, thank you so much for coming and doing this with me. This case stuck with me so I can't explain what it is, but sometimes, you know, the calling you have and you know that something's there and you just can't let it go. This case is that for me. So I'm not going to let this go. Hopefully we'll have more answers. Thank you so much for taking time and coming here and explaining what happened. And yeah, it was crazy.
Well, first of all, I do hope you get your wish. I hope that somebody else looks into it. I really do. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely.